It's 1687. Isaac Newton drops a right club banger called Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, introducing his physics of gravity. However, it could be argued, and it will be because I'm fucking going to, that perhaps his biggest leap was his idea that the rules down here on Earth world are the same rules that are up there in space world. So if a theory of gravity works for apples, which never fell on his head by the way, that's bollocks, then it will work for stars, galaxies and black holes too. Sounds obvious enough to us living in the future, but it was revolutionary back then and it changed physics forever. And anyway, what did you ever do? Bugger all, probably, so just shut up. Anywho, that eventually led to the discovery of Big G, or G. G is the gravitational constant, and it guarantees that wherever you go in the universe, the attractive force of two objects will always be proportional to their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. The point, as far as we know, is that Big G never changes anywhere in the universe ever. It's a constant, and constants are important because the universe is as mad as a bucket of coked up ferrets, and depending on where you are or what you're doing, the speed of time can go wibbly, the local strength of gravity can change, denoted by little g, or G. Mass, momentum, everything is variable. We need things to hold on to if we want to know what the really real rules of the universe are. So if you're feeling social, let's meet some of the fundamental constants of reality, the rules that dictate everything. And the speed of light. Doesn't matter what you're doing, how fast you're going, or if you wish your girlfriend was hot like me, the speed of light in a vacuum never changes, as far as we know. That means if you're going at 1 meter per second, then the speed of light is traveling this fast away from you, and if you're going at 298 million meters per second, then the speed of light is still traveling this fast away from you. If the speed of light doesn't change, ever, then everything else has to change around it, like time and distance, and that's partly where we get relativity. Anyway, it's called K, and it's a constant. Cool. 2. The fine structure constant. This is alpha. It basically denotes how strongly electromagnetism can fuck with charged stuff like protons and electrons, and it comes out as 137. That number is so fundamental to nature that if aliens contacted us, before we replied with nudes or pictures of cats, sending 137 might be the best proof to them that we are big boys and big girls now, and come say hello please. Today. Planck's constant. Planck gave us h, which basically defines the relationship between a wave or particle's frequency with its total energy. For one thing, it tells us that energy actually comes in little packets, called quanta, and from that we also get the Planck length, mass, time, charge, and temperature. These are the master units of reality. They're not defined by silly human measurements, they're made of other constants. If there is a god, he's probably using these to boil his tea and put up his shelves. Theater. Finally, the mass of the proton and the electron are also good yardsticks for the universe, since they don't change as far as we know and they come in at these values, but I don't know what they are yet because I'm writing this script on the bus and I consider internet on mobile phones to be the pinnacle of millennial degeneracy. Now, that's all very interesting, you might say, but where do the constants get those values? Well, before we fail to answer that, it's not just the constants that are set up rather specifically in our universe, it's fucking everything. Hey, this is cool, huh? So, fundamentally, we live in three-dimensional space. Fuck! So, we live in three-dimensional space with one time dimension, which is fine, but it's not too silly to imagine a universe that could have been set up with only two spatial dimensions, or four even. And what would four look like? So, you have the usual vanilla X, Y, and Z axes, and let's add one more for funsies, called W. This is a fourth dimensional axis, so we've added a whole new dimension to space. Now, it's a bit difficult to conceive of because we're built for three-dimensional thinking, but you can see as you vary the fourth dimension in the environment, everything goes a bit, to put it mathematically, totally up the fuck. So objects are moving through a dimension we can't see, and to us, disappearing. We know this is mathematically possible. You could have a universe that works like this, or with even more dimensions, but the point is, we don't know if three dimensions is the only spatial way to do things. We just happen to find ourselves living in a universe with them. Why is our universe only three-dimensional with one time dimension as far as we're aware? No one has a clue. It's not self-evident. Time for a personal anecdote. As the icing on my genetic cake, I was born more or less blind in one eye, and worse, it would just wander off sometimes if it got bored. It really was a piece of shit. And in the prime of my adolescence, I felt a touch conscious about this. So I went to a doctor and asked, and he said, yeah, sure, let's get it sorted. Fun side note, what I didn't expect was that a while before the operation, to check you won't get double vision from the surgery, they inject Botox into you, surrounded by 15 very attractive student doctors while you try to pretend you're totally fine with a needle in your fucking eye! Anyway, a while later they put me to sleep and I woke up with some bandages, and then I didn't really have a lazy eye anymore. And that was it. A few months passed and the novelty wore off, and then I got to thinking, how did they put me to sleep anyway? What is this anesthesia nonsense? And I looked into it because I didn't know how anesthesia worked, and as it turned out, no one else fucking did either. We know general anesthesia stops vital areas of the brain talking to each other so you can't form memories, and we assume you're unconscious too, or we hope so. But we don't understand the mechanism yet, and I couldn't believe this. So we're using this thing thousands of times a day for opening people's skulls and rib cages and all sorts, and we don't even know how it works. And then you start to notice this pattern everywhere. The things we use and trust all the time without any knowledge of the mechanism behind them. Our languages, our medicines, the biology underlying sleeping or what sleep is even for, consciousness, imagination, and then finally just the world. Why natural laws work or are there at all. We know they keep going, we know we can wrap them up in equations, but we don't. It's 1687. Isaac Newton drops a right club banger called Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, introducing his physics of gravity. However, it could be argued, and it will be because I'm fucking going to, that perhaps his biggest leap was his idea that the rules down here on Earth world are the same rules that are up there in space world. So if a theory of gravity works for apples, which never fell on his head by the way, that's bollocks, then it will work for stars, galaxies and black holes too. Sounds obvious enough to us living in the future, but it was revolutionary back then and it changed physics forever. And anyway, what did you ever do? Bugger all, probably, so just shut up. Anywho, that eventually led to the discovery of Big G, or G. G is the gravitational constant, and it guarantees that wherever you go in the universe, the attractive force of two objects will always be proportional to their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them.